Hello, and welcome to the Mild Opinion Podcast. This is episode 16. It is episode 4 of season 2, and today we're talking about Stranger Things. I'm Luke.
I'm Logan.
And we'll go ahead and get started here by, we recently got the announcement that Stranger Things Season 5, it's had its release dates officially released, so we know it's coming this year on Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's in 3 different volumes. And how do you feel about this, that they're splitting it into 3 parts?
It's, I don't think it's like terrible just because it'll give me something to look forward to like in between. I think like that's part of like what they're going for is they want like that build up, the speculation and all that, you know what I mean? Because you'll see the first part and be like, oh, I think this, and this is going to happen. And you see the next part, and so on and so forth. But on the other side of it, I feel like it's kind of obnoxious just because we've already waited for so long. And I'm like, then you're going to give us a little bit of it, make us wait again. Not once, but twice.
Yeah. And, like, I thought the first time I was annoyed because it was like, with season 4, they released part 1, which was great because I remember I was watching part 1 of that and I was like, oh wow, this is like great. Like I was afraid that the quality was going to go down and all that, and I liked season 4 a lot, but it did feel like such a big gap between the two, and now literally like the first one comes on Thanksgiving and then literally almost exactly a month later is when volume 2 comes, and then just like next week. So I agree that I think it's a little obnoxious to do 3 parts just because people have been waiting for so long. I feel like 2 parts would have been expected, but 3 is just like, dang. But saying that too, they have been saying for a while now that like this season, like every episode is like a feature-length movie, which makes me think like, okay, well, they want to at least give people time to like take in everything that they're seeing, because they're going to go like all out on this since this is like the last drive. So I get it, but I'm also still like, gosh, and I just don't get releasing it on holidays like that.
Yeah, that kind of got me a little bit too, because I was like, oh yeah, you know what I mean, like it's dates that everybody will know and stuff like that, but I'm like, I don't know, nobody's going to be like, oh yeah, let's go have Thanksgiving dinner with our family and then chill out and watch the new Stranger Things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same thing with like Christmas, like, oh, let's go open presents and then flip on the new Stranger Things.
Yeah, and like the thing is like I could see myself like the very next day throwing it on and being like, all right, let's get caught up. But I'm also worried just because knowing like it's something we've talked about before, where it's like social media stuff has no respect for spoilers anymore whatsoever. So we'll have to be like especially cautious for that. And especially with the length that they're promising these things to be, you know, there's people who are going to be there on Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's who watch the whole thing beginning to end and then are out there telling people what happens. So that's what makes me, like, nervous about it. But, so I'm, like, hot and cold on the releasing it in 3 volumes because I respect that, like, they've put so much time into each episode that it's going to be too much for people to, like, watch it all at once. And just with a show like this, people have like their own theories and stuff, and I think you'll probably remember like when they came out with part 1 of season 4 and then it was like split, everybody had like time to like theorize and stuff, and like word of mouth went crazy about it. So I get like them giving it time to like spread popularity through its own hype that it'll build off of that too.
Yeah, well, and the other thing about the just holiday stuff, it's, you know, I've been thinking about it's not great. It's like people get like so busy during like the holidays. So, you know, if you don't have like your family Thanksgiving, like, or, you know, you might have your family Thanksgiving, like on Thanksgiving, but then you also have like the other side of your family, like the next day and stuff like that. And then we're worried about like spoilers and stuff, and it goes for like Christmas too, you know what I mean? Christmas, you know, people have Christmas stuff like all week with their families, their different sides and everything. Like spoilers and stuff, you know, what if I can't watch it on the, you know, day of release or the next day or the day after that because I'm busy, and then, you know, by that time it's like 2 or 3 days after release, the whole internet's just flooded.
Yeah.
Even if it's just stuff like memes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like just stuff that I don't want to know. You know what I mean?
And too, like, with a show like that, like, it's so popular, and, like, I remember them saying, like, when season 4 came out, like, how many people re-downloaded Netflix and stuff, and, like, their numbers, like, shot through the roof. And I feel like this is a show that's, like, it is the brand of Netflix, is, like, Stranger Things is their flagship, and this is the ending of it. So I feel like there's going to be people who have never watched the show downloading it and being like, all right, I got to just see what this is about, watch it beginning to end. Like, no spoilers are going to be safe past the drop. Because who knows, there might be, like, lunatics out there who are like, I gotta know what happens at the very end, so, like, as soon as it drops, they'll skip to the last episode, then go to the last 10 minutes and be like, what the? Hopefully not, but this is, it's just not, we'll have to be very, very careful, because I do not want to get anything spoiled for this.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Especially with something like that, like, where it's at now, you know it's going to be, like, dramatic, and there's new stuff that, you know, we probably don't know, or, well, we definitely don't know, or haven't seen yet, stuff like that. So it's like, there's so many, like, things that could get spoiled that I feel like, especially with this show and where it's at right now, I'm like, dude, I don't want to get it ruined for me.
I know.
Before I even have the chance to watch it.
I know, and there's going to be, like, so many big questions and stuff answered, like, what is the Upside Down? And, like, they came up with all these new questions in season 4 of, like, so much stuff about the Upside Down. Like, why is it in the past on the day Will went missing? Like, if it's been there all along, and, like, why did it look different when Henry first went there? I don't know. I've been seeing things where people are like, yeah, if you go into the Stranger Things lore, there's a place called Dimension X, which is where he goes, and, like, the Upside Down is there, but, like, that's the only part of the world that's, like, a reflection. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna need somebody to, like, just hard answer it for me in the show, which I think they'll give to, like, casual viewers, because I don't particularly have an interest in diving that deep into that much lore apart from the show itself.
Yeah, I'm kind of like that too, just because I'm like, you know, this is the show, this is what it is, this is what's being, you know, fed to me media-wise. Like, I don't want to have to, like, dive into, like, lore and, like, fan theories and stuff like that to get a grasp on what's happening. Which, you know, there's some stuff where it's, like, in a way bigger universe and a way bigger scope and all that. Kind of like Star Wars, like, the lore for that's, like, endless. And, you know, some of it won't just jump out at you, you know what I mean? But, you know, that's, like, a completely different thing. Because, like, with Stranger Things, it's like, here's the story, this is what's going on. It's being, like, fed to me via the show. Like, I'm not getting it from any other, like, media outlets and stuff like that, like any other source of media, like books and stuff like that.
There hasn't really been, like, a necessity for that. Like, the show is answering stuff at its own pace, and, like, as with anything, the more you learn about what's going on, the more questions you'll have about it.
Yeah.
But, like, there's nothing where I'm like, they're just gonna leave that hanging and I have to go digging to find the answer. Like, they're clearly going to tell you what you need to know.
Yeah.
So, and also this is a show where it's like, I feel like whenever there's something that they hint at, they don't just leave it out there. Like, it's something that's going to come back in some way, shape, or form. So I just don't see, like, a lot of unanswered questions at the end of the show, because all of the big questions I have are the ones that they clearly have been like, yeah, you should wonder why that is.
Yeah. Well, and with that as well, like, throughout the entirety of the show, you know what I mean? Like, usually they'll, like, say something, or they'll mention something, or they'll show something, and it'll be like, oh, yeah, like, it's that. Because then they'll, like, wrap back around to it and, like, tell you what it is and stuff like that. But here recently, since, like, the new trailers dropped and all that, and I've been seeing people on, like, TikTok and, you know, Instagram or whatever, saying, like, oh, if you go back to, you know, episode 2 of the first season, episode whatever, and you look in the background, it says this. And I'm like, part of me is like, maybe it is just, like, small details I didn't catch at first, but also a lot of it, I'm like, this all feels like a reach, because usually they're pretty good about coming back to it, like, and letting you know, like, this was important. They don't really, like, hide stuff in, like, the details. So, like, with all the people who are like, oh, like, it's this, it was right here all along, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like they don't really hide stuff like that. Like, I feel like they kind of, like, lay it out. Like, what you need to know, like, they show it to you and make sure, like, it's, like, a focal point.
And there is stuff where it's, like, if you pay attention, there's so many details. Because, like, and not even like story wise, but like because the show is extremely popular, it's popular. I feel like with so many different generations, because it's like people who grew up in the '80s recognize so many like aesthetics and like references and stuff that like people like you and me might not. So I know like my parents watch it and they'll be like flipping through a TV or something in the show and they'll be like, oh, that's that one show. Like I remember that. And so I feel like there's so much like in terms of like world building, a lot of details to it. Like the whole joke with like the new Coke being a thing, like a part of it. And all these like trends from back then. I feel like that's very layered, but I don't feel like there's anything which is like heavy story stuff that we're missing, other than them being like, "Hey, isn't this weird?" And like purposely telling you this is supposed to be weird.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is like I feel like a lot of times when people are like, "Oh yeah, like the way that this light blinked in this episode, it was clearly this," and I'm like, "Was it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Was I really supposed to pick up on that?"
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's like. I don't know. That doesn't seem like it would be something that would be like super important for us to like pick up on.
Nah. All right. Well, I was gonna start by asking you who like some of your favorite characters are in the show.
Well, I'm a big fan of Steve.
Yeah, I like Steve.
Steve's the man.
Always on the front lines.
Yeah. I'd probably say my two favorites are probably Steve and Hopper.
Yeah, I think overall Hopper's probably my favorite just because, like, he seems, like, at first kind of like he's just going to be, like, by the book, like, the good guy of the show, but then, like, he actually does some, like, he, like, does not stop to, like, get answers to his questions and to, like, protect people and stuff. Like, he does some stuff where people would be like, wow, that's shady, and, like, I can't believe he's capable of that. But I have, like, learning more about him, and he's just funny. Like, he just says funny stuff. So I think Hopper's my favorite, and apart from him, I would say probably, like, Steve, and then I think Joyce are probably my top three. Because I think Joyce is funny, and she's also always just, like, right in the thick of it.
Yeah. Another one that I like quite a bit is Robin. Robin's cool.
She'd probably be higher up for me, but she hasn't had like the staying power yet. Yeah. And I'm sure by like the end of season 3, like Biohawk's huge, so they're gonna use her a lot. She'll have like just as prominent, if not a bigger role in season 5, but I have liked her, and especially like her integration with like Steve and like how well those two pair with each other. I've really enjoyed her as an addition to the show.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. And then also I feel like out of like the kids, I like Dustin. Dustin's awesome.
Yeah. I was thinking about it before we started recording it. I was like, Dustin is by far like one of the most useful of them just because he's so smart. Like technically and like just good at putting puzzle pieces together. Like he's so useful in the fights and stuff.
I feel like, well, I guess they started using him better more recently in like season 4 and stuff like that. But I feel like someone that they kind of like, I don't know, they just like didn't use him or like gave him like weird storylines that I didn't really care for was Lucas.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he was always just kind of like on the back burner. He wasn't like, you know.
He was there. He was just kind of like goofy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they had like the whole thing with like the basketball team and all that. And then, you know, now there's, of course it's getting more dramatic now with everything going on with
Willie Max.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think he's definitely the one that's like grown on me the most because, I mean, in season 1 they make it seem like it's going to be Mike as like the main of the group throughout the whole way through, and they kind of have established that he's like the center of their group, but he's not necessarily like main character power over any of the rest of them, which like upon like starting the show I didn't think was going to be the case. I thought it was just going to be like Mike is like the centerpiece of this, but like they've really fleshed out Dustin a lot, and like Dustin, apart from the rest of them too, is always doing like crazy stuff. And like you said, like especially in the most recent season, Lucas got like a lot of character development, and then my main problem with like that group is just like the inconsistency of the characters. So like the character I feel that with the most is Will, because he's so important in the first 2 seasons. Then after that, he just kind of like gets a feeling something's bad, and they're like, "Oh no, Will senses it," but that's it.
Yeah, I think that with Will, it's kind of odd just because I like Will and I like what they done with his character and stuff as he's developed, and he was such a big part of the main storyline in the very beginning, which was awesome. And I wouldn't want to change that at all. But then they kind of he became like less important, I guess.
Yeah.
And like with someone who's like so connected to like the Upside Down and stuff, and like Joyce and everything as well. You know what I mean? I'm like, I feel like you should be doing more important stuff than what you are. Like there should be like more to your storyline than what there has been. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and just yeah. Especially like it looks like he's gonna be more important in the final season. So it is weird that they just like put him off to the side.
Yeah.
And that was another problem I had with season 4 is I felt like there were 3 storylines which were very important, and then there was one which was not. So it was like Eleven's getting her powers back, and she's going to be like their main weapon against Vecna. So it's like, okay, that's big stuff. Then you got like the main group back in Hawkins learning all the history of Vecna and like literally being like, we got to kill him, like, or the world ends. And then there's the Russia stuff, like get Hopper back, and like I know you've said you don't like care for the Russian storylines as much, but like it's a lot of like world building of being like the US is not the only ones aware of this. And this is in like prime Cold War time, so it's like you, especially at the end of season 4, see them like experimenting and like holding them, and that's another storyline where I'm like, they gotta come back and be like, what are they doing? But then there's the California storyline, which is just them like driving around from place to place, and it's just like nothing happens with them really.
Yeah. And I feel like it's just like, I don't know, I feel like that was kind of put there intentionally just because like it was all like so dramatic and like so big, like world ending stuff. It was also important. And then they kind of wanted to have like at least one storyline that kind of brought it like back down to earth, give it like the charm from like the original seasons, like because like, it's like them being kids and stuff like that, which that's good. You know what I mean? Because it was like a very vast difference between what everyone else was doing and then like the more like just like kids and like middle school storyline.
Yeah,
which is good. I liked it, but also I'm like, this just seems very out of place for what's going on right now.
Yeah, and it's both like a strength and a weakness for the show, where I feel like they'll introduce a side character and then you get to a new season and it's like somebody who you don't consider that important in like a previous season can just all of a sudden be like the focal point of what's happening. So it's like Max in season 2 and 3, like she's all right and she like fits in well with everything that's going on, but she's not like centerpiece. And then all of a sudden she's like like one of the most important characters at the end of season 4. So it's like, dang. But yeah, and it's just both a strength and a weakness because it can cost other characters screen time in a storyline, but it can also lift up other characters.
Yeah. And in terms of like the characters and storylines and stuff like that, I know that they said when they were like writing this and they started making the show and all that they had the story mapped out already, and they're like, this is the story, we don't want to stray from it, that's why we're only making it like 5 seasons and we're not doing it anymore, even though Netflix offered us a bunch of money and all that, which is good. I like that because they have their story, they want to tell it, they don't want to ruin it. That's good. But one thing I've been seeing people talk about is like Eddie Munson and what happened to Eddie and all that stuff, because obviously he was huge. Everybody, everyone loved Eddie, and everyone's like, oh, like is he gonna be back? Is he not? Whatever. But I'm like, well, if that's the case, whether or not he comes back, I wonder if they will bring him back somehow, just because of how popular he was. Or if it's one of those things where they're like, oh yeah, like he wasn't written to come back. You know what I mean? Like we're not gonna bring him back.
Yeah, this goes into another issue that like a lot of people criticize the show for, which is like they introduce side characters that are like awesome or just like really entertaining, and then they die in one season. So like a lot of people liked Barb in season 1, and like they do like the whole thing where they find a way to like get her justice and stuff. It's like against the lab, but she dies one off, and then I think Bob in season 2 comes in. He's just like a fun character. He had his like hero moment and then just dead. Season 3, Billy, who's been there for 2 seasons by that point, gone. Even though he went out with a bang. It's like he was really important. And then that like Russian scientist guy who they started to kind of integrate in. And then this new season, Eddie was probably out of that group like the most popular of those to be introduced. And then so I don't know if they will bring him back as a character who's there in the action. I think the more likely thing would be that he would show up in a flashback of some sort. But I've heard people, like the show's been out for 3 years now, season 4. You might have seen the theory floating around that he's that Dungeons and Dragons character who's like an undead servant of Vecna or whatever.
I've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, so I'm like, I could see something like that, but I'm ultimately like, what they have to, I guess, pick and choose what they are and aren't going to do, because they have to not just like throw too much stuff in to make it absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Well, in the case of Eddie, I thought he was like awesome. He was a fantastic character.
Yeah.
And with fantastic characters and they die and stuff like that, you want to have them back. You want to see him on screen again. But the other end of that is like Eddie had like his awesome moment. Like that last scene with him and his guitar and the upside down and everything. Like that was freaking fantastic.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I feel like if they did bring him back, I mean, it'd be cool if he was like, an undead servant of Vecna and all that. Like, that'd be cool. And it'd make sense. Like they would fit it in to make sense. But also I'm like, he already had like his awesome moment. I don't want them to like be like, oh yeah, he's back, but he's bad now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know.
I think that would take away if he was bad now.
Yeah.
I think though, if you really like think about his character, he was so much more important if you really think through all the aspects of the story that he touches. So like, he is the first person who like witnesses Vecna in action, and then like he's literally like, I guess people are blaming him for like being in a Satan cult or whatever, and it's such a like weird way that it's like, this is how the upside down is affecting people, is they think that this guy who's just happens to keep being in the wrong place at the wrong time is doing some sort of satanic rituals and stuff, but it's actually, that's the upside down being like full exposure to these people, which I think just like by the end of the season played out nicely with like Vecna's plan working and the world literally like splitting open, and now the upside down is like here, and it's not like necessarily hiding anymore, like here it is, and it's full out, and people still will be convinced it's like, oh, that Eddie Munson opened the gateway to hell. Yeah. I was gonna ask you, what seasons you think are your favorite? If you could, like, what do you think your ranking of them is?
Well, I'll go from my least favorite to my favorite.
Yeah.
I would say my least favorite, probably 2. I don't know.
2?
Yeah, I don't know.
I was gonna say 2.
And then, honestly, probably 2, 4, 3, and then 1.
Oh yeah.
Because 1, it's
classic.
Yeah, it's classic.
It's classic now. Yeah.
And like, I don't know, the vibes were really cool. It was when they were still like really like young, so like it was like they were kids, and it was before the story developed into being like super elaborate. So it was kind of just like,
Yeah.
like there was stuff going on, like you were like it left you wondering and everything, but it is the tone of the show. That it set the tone for the rest of the show, and it done it in a way to where like it wasn't like super overwhelming for one season.
Yeah.
And also the vibes of the beginning of the show were super cool and everything. Yeah.
It's like right at the beginning, and it spends a lot of time like telling you who these people are and like, whatnot. Yeah. I think for me, I probably rank the show from like, I probably put 2 at the bottom too, but I really like the Mind Flayer in that season. Like I think it's an interesting bad guy. So I probably put 2 at the bottom, but then I probably put 3, then 4, then 1, because I agree, like 1, when it's just like the simple and small story is good, but season 4 really surprised me in that after season 3 came out and like everybody goes their separate ways and it's so spread out, I was like, the story's getting like so big now, and like Russia's involved and all that. And then when season 4 came, it was handled with all these different parts like moving all at once, like in my opinion just like very well. So I was like very like happily surprised at how they handled season 4.
Yeah.
And you and I have talked about this too. I feel like the show gets so much unnecessary hate. Like it is definitely very popular and like people love it, but I like, there's people who are like, the show should have ended after season 1, and I'm like, no, I think it's been pretty consistent all the way through.
Yeah. Well, also, you know, there's like so much story that like, why would it end after season 1? You know what I mean? Like that's like it becomes a little different, but like that's just like elaborating on the story.
I understand it too, like it gets so, like our friend who has watched only the season 4 finale and that's all he's seen of the show, like you'd watch it and be like, what the heck is going on? Like how are all these people even in the same story here? And then you go back to season 1 and they're literally all in the same spot. So I understand, I guess, the annoyance of it's going to such a large scale, but with it being that popular of a show and kind of sticking to its guns in terms of like the 80s and the problems that they're dealing with, I think it's pretty solid all the way through. We'll ask like a couple more things here. Is in season 5, what are some things that you would not want to see happen?
Things I would not want to see happen. Well, I feel like one of the big ones that I've seen that everyone's like, oh yeah, like that's how it's gonna wrap up. It's like a theory. Is like, yeah, like a bunch of people die. Like everyone dies that like aren't like the main kids, and I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want everybody to die. Like that's a little much in my opinion.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I don't want everybody to die. I do expect some of them to die, but you know, like I feel like there should be like, all right, you know what I mean, here's a couple people that didn't make it.
Yeah.
I also have seen where a lot of people are saying like they want all of the kids to survive. I don't necessarily, you know, I wouldn't mind if they did, you know what I mean, because whatever, but like, I don't know, I wouldn't mind it if they're like, take one of them, get one of them out of here.
Yeah. A few things that I've been seeing of people being like, oh, I bet this is gonna happen, is I don't want really any of the kids to die, but at one point you said to me that if any of them were to die that you'd think it would be Mike, and I agree with that, and I can't really put my finger on why, other than that, like, if Dustin died, there'd be riots. Lucas has become much more popular of a character. I feel like it would defeat the whole purpose of the show for Will to die, because it's like they faked him out several times and he's been through so much, and like that's the whole point of Joyce's character. She goes to all these lengths to protect her kids, and I don't think I don't want really 11 to die. I think that would be unnecessary.
Yeah.
Other than that, some things that I don't really want to see is I don't want the story to go like, I'm okay with it being like Russians in the United States, but I don't want it to be something where it's like the whole world finds out about this.
Yeah.
Like I don't want it to go worldwide. I just want it to be like Hawkins, the U.S. military is involved in like trying to stop the world from ending, but I kind of want it to be a thing where it's like the main people save the world and nobody knows about it.
Yeah, I kind of want that too, because also I would rather it be like more local, like Hawkins and like obviously like the military and stuff know about it, but like one of those things where it's like the kids and like Joyce and Hopper and all those people versus like Vecna and the Upside Down and whoever else, rather than it being like, oh yeah, like they're dealing with it, but also Russia's trying to do stuff in this place and this place and this place. I'm like, I want it to be like the main people versus the main bad guy. Like, leave it at that. I want very little meddling of government issue stuff. I don't want the government to be super involved.
Yeah. And then one more thing I was gonna ask is, do you have any like surprise appearances that you predict will happen, or like things that you think will happen like 100% by the end of the show?
Well, I do think, because everybody's wondering like what's going to happen from here, and I like villain wise, and I do think that Vecna will be a big part of it, but also I do agree with the theory that like, because people are going by like the like D&D villains and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I do agree that it'll be the what is the Hydra?
Tesla Hydra, I think.
Yeah. I think it'll be that as like the main thing that they're fighting in like
the big monster they named that. Yeah. I think it'll be like Vecna or the Mind Flayers still like the minds behind it, but I think we're definitely going to see whatever that thing is that Nancy was talking about, and I think it's going to be a very powerful monster and probably like the problem to deal with. Mm-hmm. At least in terms of power scale, but like it's not going to be the main villain.
I think, yeah. I guess that's true, because also, you know, Vecna's still very much there and very much dangerous. And also, he's kind of been like, you know, the brains of the whole thing, as far as we know. You know what I mean? Even over like the Mind Flayer and stuff like that. Like, he finds the Mind Flayer and then he's like, you know, kind of just controls it. Yeah.
And I've talked to you about this. I like Vecna as a villain, but I do hope it's a thing where it's not just him. I felt like the Mind Flayer was like a good big bad of its own, and like I'm not gonna like hate it if it is just like Vecna's controlling this thing, but I don't believe that he is as in control as he wants to believe he is of the Mind Flayer. I could see it being something like he gave it form or like consciousness, but I think that thing is like the embodiment of evil in the Upside Down, and that it wants different things, because in the past when it has talked through like Will and Billy and stuff, it doesn't talk like it's Vecna. It's been speaking like it's this thing that is witnessing our world and being like, I'm going to kill these, like everything, because I want it. And then it's just like, and the main thing that gets me like that is it calls, I've always thought this, like in season 2 it calls scientists soldiers because it sees them as a threat to it. So I don't believe that it's just Vecna.
Yeah.
But I do think there's some sort of weird symbiotic relationship there between the two of them. But yeah, is there anything else you wanted to add for Stranger Things?
Not really.
Alrighty. Well, this has been the Mild Opinion Podcast, episode 16. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.